On behalf of Frank and his family, we'd like to thank you all for joining us to remember and honor Sharron Catherine Bayley, beautiful wife, mom, grandmother, great-grandmother, cousin, aunt, friend, and our sister. She was born November 26, 1946, the only gall darn year Dad missed deer hunting, and he used to let her know that a lot. She was the second child of Blondie and Monroe Strain. The family grew to 6 kids. While we lived in Toronto, we would see lots of cousins, aunts, and uncles, especially on our frequent visits to our beloved Ma's house. Our favorite family times were at the cottage on Beaver Lake. Once again, weekends and summers filled with love, laughter, and extended family. When Cher was a teenager, I used to love to sit on the bathroom counter in awe as I watched her apply her blue eyeshadow and comb her hair into a beehive bun. There was never any doubt in my mind that she could be Miss America. She was so beautiful. She introduced Kathy, our younger sister, and I to the magic of Disney movies and music. She'd dance and jump all over the living room and couch with us. She made our childhood fun. She also read to us a lot. Dave recalls a time when Sharron was about 13, and she and her friend Pat came up to the cottage. Sharron and Pat invited David to come for a walk with them to the old Spencer's abandoned shack. They crept into the rundown place that was dark and damp. Dave, being a normal, curious 10-year-old, jumped up and pulled down the dilapidated paper that was the makeshift ceiling. Within seconds, the whole cabin was full of bats. They couldn't even see each other. David was very impressed that he lived to tell that story. And although Sharron's and Pat's screams could have been heard back in Toronto, his big sister didn't kill him. Lynn remembers the best advice anyone ever has given her. When she was 18 years old and due to give birth to Craig, she was terrified. Sharron told her it was not as bad as Hollywood makes it out to be. And besides, do you really think that women would go back for 2 or 3 kids if it was that bad? Cher giving Lynn that advice and encouragement meant the world to Lynn. Lynn has shared that story with lots of young women who are having their first babies. She says she's going to miss her big sister's wisdom. Sharron had Dean in 1967. He was the first grandchild to our family, and we were all head over heels in love with him. Our dad's job transferred him to London, Ontario, a few months after Dean was born. Ross, Sharron and Dean and David stayed in Toronto, and Lynn, Debbie, and Kathy moved with Mom and Dad. That was very hard on the family, but we remained as close as possible with frequent trips down the 401. Cher started working at IBM in 1968. She started in the mailroom and worked very hard to learn about the company. She never had a desire to be in management, but loved her role as a mentor, leading teams of people, and coding. She worked at IBM for her whole career and retired in 2012. The best part of her starting at the mailroom, that's where she met Frank. He recounts the day that he met her as follows. He started at IBM in 1968 and was looking after customer executive visits to their facilities. He goes on to say, I was pretty, well, really green, had a ton of confidence, 0 experience, all smoke and mirrors. I sent a letter and had to get it back. About 5:30, I hit the mailroom in hopes that the truck hadn't picked it up yet. She was the only one there, and we went through what seemed to be a gazillion bags, and she found it first. I asked her out for a coffee, and she said she had something going on. Turns out that something was Dean. Frank also recalls their first date. Our first date was to Niagara Falls. Super cool me, with all the cocky confidence in the world, took the wrong turn, leaving to go home, headed to Fort Erie. She questioned the direction, but I knew I was right. I had nailed it. So she sat there with a twinkle smile. As we rolled on, it occurred to me I was making a dumbass mistake. She got up, got us turned around, and headed back home. We used to laugh about that a lot. As Frank told us those stories, it occurred to us that that's what makes great memories. Not perfection, but our perfect imperfections that we share and love each other through. She brought Frank to London one weekend for us to meet him. He presented as larger-than-life businessman, but we all saw his underbelly and how much he loved Sharron and Dean. We all fell in love with him. Sharron and Frank and Dean were married July 15th, 1972. I remember this one time Sharron and Frank, Kathy and I were going to the cottage. As many of you remember, our cottage, to get down to our cottage, there was a lot of wooden stairs once you parked at the top of the hill. It was damp, rainy evening, and when we arrived, and Frank was unloading the car. As we were all making our way down the stairs with our arms full of supplies and groceries, Cher slipped and bounced down about 10 of the stairs right on her tailbone. The groceries went flying, her glasses went flying, she was hurt. She sat there for a moment to catch her breath, but her eyes were all welled up with tears. Her tailbone had taken a beating. Dean was about 5 years old then, and ever protective of his mom. He came running up to her as we were trying to get her back on her feet, yelling, "Mommy, Mommy, don't cry, I found your glasses, they're right here," and held up the mangled glasses. That was enough to get us all laughing, and Dean felt like the hero of the day, special bond between a boy and his mom. A few years down the road, Jill was born. As all grandchildren are special, Jill's arrival seemed to be an extra special gift to the family. And she was born December 22nd, and the nurses brought her to Sharron and Frank in a Christmas stocking, and we just all thought it was so sweet. A few months after she was born, our mom became very ill and was in the hospital for a couple of weeks before she died. The whole family loved to carry Jill around the house for our comfort, even more than the babies. Frank was telling us a story the other night about a time when his mom was visiting from British Columbia. Cher and her took the girls to the farmer's market called Bax in Newmarket. Frank's mom and Cher, do you want me to shut up, Jill? Frank's mom and Cher went in to buy some things, and Jill and Debbie wanted to wait in the car. Jill decided she wanted to listen to the radio, so climbed into the front seat and started the car. She didn't realize she had to put her foot on the clutch and brake. As she started the car, it began to make its way to the edge of the 5-foot drop-off into a marsh. Someone who knew Cher ran into the store and said, "You better get outside." She ran out to find her car and her 2 beautiful daughters sitting in the muck of the marsh. When the police arrived, Sharon directed the police officer to not go easy on Jill. Jill said, "Man, I was grounded for the rest of the summer. They usually buckled and let me off early, but not that time. But hey, Mom got a new car out of it."
That's very thoughtful.
Jill and Cher most certainly made up and were the best of friends. Jill recently spent many hours at her mom's hospital bedside with her computer beside Cher so they could watch My Fair Lady, The Sound of Music, and yes, The Golden Girls, all of Cher's favorite. Jill's daughter Aspen and Shayla spent many hours there too, by Cher's side, 3 generations of love. A few years after Jill was born, their feisty little redhead entered the world. Deborah was the last beautiful addition to the family. Debbie remembers that her mom was always curious about what lay beyond our perceived world. She remembers Cher reading her adventure stories like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. She said she spent many a hot summer nights listening to the cicadas and her mom's voice reading to her about the worlds and ideas that excited them both. As Deb got a little older, her and Cher would love to watch Star Trek together. If Deb would ask a question that would stump Cher, Cher's response would always be, "Let's find out," and out would come a whole bunch more books. When Deb was about 12 years old, Cher gave her a book called Sphere. It blew Deb's mind, and her exciting journey with Cher by her side led to the next summer going through a CD-ROM version of A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. That summer was a special memory for both of them, learning about what might exist beyond our perception. Debbie sums up her memory of her mom. As she herself moves beyond our perception, it becomes one with the universe. I imagine she is like Ellie Arroway, the astronomer from the movie Contact, who travels through subspace dimensions to the center of the galaxy, and when she reaches the other side and reports back what she sees, she says, "Some celestial event." No words. No words to describe it. Poetry. They should have sent a poet. So beautiful, I had no idea. Sharron and Frank raised their family in Newmarket on Ella Court. Lots of memories and great stories came from that home. Then came the jewels in Sharron and Frank's crowns, their grandchildren, and then their great-grandchildren. Those babies brought them so much joy and love and gratitude for the family they had been blessed with. One day when Kristen was little, she shared with her grandma that she was worried that she was getting old and might die. Sharron assured her with her beautiful smile and warm hug that it will be great, and she was excited to explore the universe. That satisfied Kristen and gave Cher a warm glow. Grandchildren will do that to you. Nick, Kristen's brother, and her were there to hold Cher's hand when she was in the hospital and help her to prepare for her next great adventure. Once Sharron and Frank retired, they sold their house in Newmarket and moved to Penetanguishene. Their lovely house backs onto the peaceful wooded area with a small town feel, located on Georgian Bay. It all just added up to their love of peace and nature, and that's where they would live for the rest of their lives. When Dave, Lynn, and I were sitting with Cher in her hospital room, We just recalled that no matter the situation, she would always come up with a warm and loving smile. She just always radiated kindness, and we were so blessed to call her our big sister. As her wonderful husband told us, she's not dying, she's going on to her next great adventure. Those we love don't go away. They walk beside us every day, unseen, unheard, but always near, still loved, still missed, and very dear.
Thanks, Deb. Would anyone else like to share a few memories?
You don't have to come up. You can do it from your seat, or you can come up, whatever you like. Okay, sweetie. You coming up? Get out of your way.
She needs us to snub.
It's here, I swear. The first is like my mom.
Deb didn't use her Kleenex yet.
You guys
Use
come
that, use that water either.
Now let's hope I can read my writing. Whew, you guys made it look really easy.
We're old and wiser. We're old.
All right, I'm gonna do this for my grandma.
Yeah. She's listening.
When you lose someone special, you often think about that person's character, and what that person, who that person might be. So I'd like to share with you a little bit about my grandma's character. As some of you may know, my brother Nick and I were not born Bayleys. We were chosen to be Bayleys. Adopted not only by our dad, Dean, and our bonus mom, Isabel, but by the entire Bayley family. Over 30 plus years ago, two shy little kids stood on the doorstep of Ella Court in Newmarket, a bit scared about who might open that door and what they might say to these tiny, straggly little kids. What I remember about that day was an angel. An angel with the biggest smile, the kindest energy, and arms that were open, perfectly created to cradle two tiny babies. In those arms, we found safety, warmth, and a love so great it was unconditional. Many people don't understand the gift that she gave us that day. The gift of being chosen. That day, we were reborn and brought into a family that embraced us, loved us, and continues to do so. Being part of a family is often your birthright. You are born into your family, and your family loves you. Something we easily take for granted. My grandma and my Bayley family created a space within their hearts for two kids that only asked to be loved, to be accepted, and to be a family's first choice. They say blood is thicker than water, and I challenge that and say the family created out of choice is a bond that's unbreakable. We don't have to be a family, we choose to be a family. They also say we don't choose our family, but I must say, I must be one of the lucky ones, because I feel handpicked. When I became a Bayley, I became something bigger than myself. I wear that name like a badge of honor. We can't see it, but it's there, wrapped around my heart, where it will stay for eternity. It was my honor to be your granddaughter and to be seen and loved by you. When it's time, I'll meet you in the stars. And until then, I'll be looking for you.
I wasn't going to speak because I didn't think that I could keep it together, and I may not be able to keep it together. There's so many things. I look back over the years. I'm quite astonished that it's 53 years. Didn't know that until we were figuring this out. We did so many things. She was such a guide for me. She kept me grounded. She held my hand. She showed me the way. We both worked at IBM, I for 15 years, and then afterwards my own business. And there's a risk, as most of you know, when you have your own business. And I needed a lot of support, and she was always there. She always knew what to say, and she always, just had that look, that smile. We have some very dear friends who have a cottage, and we would spend the summers, most of the summers up at that cottage. And she loved nature. She loved the forest. She loved trees. Every goddamn tree on our lot has a name, you know? Every tree, every one of them. And we would come back from anywhere, shopping, and she would talk to each tree and call it by name. I cannot remember who's who. I can't remember the names, so I'm probably going to make up new names for them. I'm sure that they won't mind. Most of the trees were already existing. However, there is a little spruce in the back that we planted, which we didn't think was going to make it. And then there are two white pines. And of course, each one of those has a name, and can't remember them either. She also loved clouds. She, we would be driving along because we took toodles everywhere. And we would be driving along and we'd look at the sky and say, it's a big sky. There used to be a TV series called The Big Sky, a Western, and we used to look out and say, it's a big sky. And she loved clouds, the structure of the clouds, how they moved. She could see animals, she could see faces, she could see everyone in the clouds. And she loved sunsets. When we would be coming home from Barrie, for whatever reason, or when we were up at the cottage, the sunsets, there was no such thing as a bad sunset for Sharron. She loved sunsets. And she would watch a sunset until it was dark. She knew the planets. Don't know how, but she knew the planets, and I would look up and there'd be something bright, and she'd look at it, and she'd say, oh, that's such and such, you know. I don't know where she got that from, but she just knew. And the moon, yeah, she went through a phase, I hate to admit this, but it became a bit of a contentious issue in the house, that the moon was an illusion, you know. And that lasted for probably about 2 years. And I said, you're nuts, you know, you're absolutely nuts. And that went away, and she loved the moon, you know. Luna was always with her. And as most of you know, I'm a highway coach driver. And at nighttime when I'm driving, bringing a group home, you know, for some reason, Luna is always in the front, you know. She's always there. And it doesn't matter what day it is or what time of the year, I'm driving along and Luna is always right there on the passenger front window, always. And so Luna became my sidekick also. So Sharron could talk to Luna, so could I. We had a tremendous amount of fun in our lifetime. Like all couples, we had some just horrid, difficult times. But for the most part, the horrid, difficult times are long gone. And nothing I can remember but the great times. I find this whole thing rather difficult, and nighttime is the worst. I'm told that it'll get better. But nighttime, we haven't slept together for about 10 years. As some of you may know, I had to have my shoulder replaced, and that required, I couldn't sleep with anyone because I had to be spread out. And then I have something wrong with my feet, so I end up by thrashing a lot, and tremendous amount of pain. So she had her library, which became her room. But now, you know, every time I walk by that room, I just tell her I'll see her in a bit. Because that's that's how we always ended, wherever we were or whatever we were doing. I would see you in a bit. And the nights lying there trying to get to sleep, all I can think about is the great, amazing times that I had with her, how absolutely lucky I was. And the great people that she brought into my life, cousins, sisters, brother, their families, you know, people I would have never met, but whose company I enjoy. You know, you are all amazing people, and I thank her for that. I thank her for the great time, and thank you all for coming to say goodbye to her.
Would anyone else like to come and say a few words? Like Debbie said, you don't have to come up here. Okay, so I believe we're now going to, oh, you?
Well, no, you go ahead. Well, the song you wrote to here is Born to Be With You. It's one of Frank and Sharon's favorites. And it's about to play. Or not. Yeah, Debbie's prepared to sing, so.
Everybody run.
We'll pick it up later. Go ahead, David.
Well, I think he's got it. Sure, Paul's more organized than I'll ever be in my life.
One of the things as a coach driver you have to put up with is a lot of silence or a lot of people talking. And I have a 42-hour playlist of music of the 60s, 50s that I grew up with, and she grew up with. And this particular piece would come up on rotation every once in a while, and I would listen to it. We would often play it and play this stuff in the car, tired of the radio. And every time this piece would come up, she would take my hand and she would say, "That's us." And so this piece became her and me. You know, maybe it would play, maybe it
Okay,
Here we
So,
go.
yeah, it's coming now.
it's coming.
It's just like driving a bus.
It was very nice, Frank. Okay. Actually, there's a favorite prayer of Sharon's. It was written in the Gospel of Matthew, in his 6th chapter, verses 9 to 13. I'd like you all to repeat this with me. It's the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you. Now there are refreshments for all of us through the door to my left, and then hang a left in the corridor there, and also the men's and women's washrooms there as well. So if you could just, as you're comfortable, proceed to that spot.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand if you were able.